This is a companion video to go along with the slideshow for Swiftwater Rescue. We left off in the slideshow talking about how to organize a hasty rescue. But let's talk a little bit about how we got there. Initially, before you even get in the water, you should do some planning and preparation for any boating trip, whether it's a small pleasure trip or a larger commercial organization. The idea is you typically have a lead boat and a rear boat. The lead boat is generally your more experienced boat. They would guide you through the rapids, designate which way to run them. They'd also point out when it's time to take an eddy to get off the river, or if there's an emergency. In the rear, you usually have a boat that's better equipped and may have more experience in rescue or medical efforts. They may have the wrap kit, ropes, or a larger first aid kit. They're deliberately in the rear so they can see what's going on in front of them. When they see this, they can take action. They can perform a rescue and catch up as the river pulls the boats downstream. Now, before you get into the water, you should think about where you're going to get on the RUP and how you're going to get off. The idea should be if you have one side where sanctuary is, like a road, a town, or some point of exit, this is where everyone should know to meet up if there's an emergency. You'd try and take the victim to that side and pull them out there. You should also think about how you're going to contact higher level resources. Do you have cell phone reception? Is anyone bringing a device like a spot or a satellite phone that could aid in communicating with the outside? These things should be established beforehand. In addition, we're going to go over some basic equipment in any Swiftwater rescue scenario that all participants need to have. This way, you can be assured that both victims and rescuers are well equipped to protect themselves and effect a rescue. Now, we showed you in the slideshow how to effect a simple rescue, where you have multiple people on the same side of the river. This assumes that those people can all be on land, move freely, communicate with one another, and usually see one another from one side of the river. Also, you had one victim who was positioned mid-channel. This is typical, and it's something that we're going to practice a lot in class. If you remember, you have the primary rescuer in position to communicate with the patient. You have upstream spotters and downstream safety, both to capture the victim or rescuers should they get into the water and be pushed downstream. You also want to have a leader or an organizational head who is not involved directly with the rescue, but is supervising, communicating, and making decisions. That's all great if you have the time and the resources. I wanted to highlight one additional concept. That is, if you come upon a situation that's rapidly evolving. So let's imagine we have a river flowing like the Amur right here. And you have a situation. If you were to come into a situation like this, and you don't know exactly what's going on, one way you could solve it would be to have the first boat come to one side here. They stay upstream, because once you've passed the victim and gone downstream, you can't provide much additional help. Second idea might be the next boat would come and position itself here, both upstream, allowing you to see one another and gain access from both sides of the river if the emergency requires it. Two more boats might take up positions down below, again on either side of the river. This is what's known as a diamond formation, or boxing the incident. This is if you have 4 boats or more and you come into the scene with enough time to react. Even if it's a minor situation or you can't help from this side of the river, the only way to be positioned here would be to take action early. So this is something more to think about if you're in a private group or a boating group and come upon a situation you don't recognize. Now, each of these things involves the need to both plan beforehand and communicate during an incident. So we're going to go over a few hand and arm signals that are pretty universal in the boating community. We'll start with the typical hand signals that can be accentuated with the paddle and then also put to use with whistle blasts. So the first signal we're going to talk about is the idea of go. If you have a leader who's downriver, if you have an activity that's going on, single hand vertically in the air indicates go, safe to move forward. By that same token, cross arms generally means stop. This indicates to stop. Now if you had a paddle, vertical paddle in the air would mean go, horizontal paddle held out would mean stop. Simple commands, if you're going down the river, are to have river right and river left. Lead boat would point river right, telling you to go in that direction. river left, telling you to go physically in that direction. As I said in the slideshow, we always point positive, point to a position of safety. We don't point at danger. We want people to focus on the safe side. If you had a paddle, you would simply point it river right, point it river left. If the lead guide wants you to eddy out, that is to move your boat over, park it on the side of the river and get out, you would give the signal eddy, river right, eddy, river left, eddy, river right, eddy, river left. Those are typical commands for moving as a unit on the water. Additionally, for individual people and rescuers, a fairly universal command is the OK signal. It's given like this at a distance. It's both a question and a response. If you are in the water, say if you fell out of your boat and a rescuer sits on the bow of another craft, they will look at you and give you this signal. It's a question. You'd respond back by saying, I'm okay. Again, from one boat to the other or to shore. If you see the sign, are you okay? You respond, I'm okay, and move forward. Anything other than that can be seen as not okay. And if you deliberately have an emergency, the universal sign like this indicates that something's the matter. At a distance, just like hikers involved in helicopter rescue, when signaled from a distance, can give two symbols back, the yes and the no. If you want to reply in the positive, you can put two hands up like this, indicating yes. Yes, I need help. Yes to the answer to your question. Separately, diagonal arms indicate no. No, I do not need help. No to the answer to your question. One additional command looks like this. This is fairly universal, that I need medical assistance. There needs to be medical help rendered. The last couple things we'll talk about are the indication of when to start and when to stop. We showed the visual. The audible would be typically one whistle blast indicates attention, pause, focus on me. Two deliberate whistle blasts indicate start, go. This is the clear, distinct signal to move forward. Anything other than that, something like three whistle blasts, indicate an emergency, a problem. Put your attention on me and something might be the matter. Now, we've already talked about these signals. It's imperative that you have the gear and the material to properly go through a boating adventure and even a rescue. So let's start head to toe with what a typical person would need on the water in order to stay safe and effect a rescue. So, one of the key elements you'd have in whitewater boating is a helmet. The key aspects of a helmet for boating involve being a hard shell, typically hard metal, over foam. Additionally, it needs to be fit securely on the head. A standard would be to have two straps on either side of the ear that clip under the chin. In addition, it needs to cover this rear part of our heads to be safe. A good boat might have sun protection. In addition though, what a visor like this can do is if a person's head is trapped underwater, allow the water to pass around it and create a small air pocket inside that might give that person, the swimmer, the victim stuck in the water, a little more time to breathe or a little bit more space to breathe. In addition, a lot of helmets will try and be solid in cold water. This prevents cold water from rushing over the head. However, in warm climates, you may want air vents in that to stay cool and warm. An often overlooked part of protection in boating is directly below the helmet. You have the notion of glasses. Sunglasses will protect your eyes. However, polarized sunglasses will reduce the glare on the water, allowing you to see obstacles or even patients in the water. So something additional you can add to your kit bag. As we move down, we're going to talk then about thermal protection. To stay warm in cold water, you have varying degrees of material you can wear. One of the lightest, most common types is a wetsuit. It's neoprene. It's rubber that's thick with small air pockets inside it. This is not waterproof because water can easily get in the sleeves and neck hole. What it will do is trap that water against your body. As it warms up, that water will stay warm and not circulate, allowing you to get a little bit of exposure to wetness, but not the convection that constantly drains energy away from you. Some downfalls to neoprene are that it will still evaporate and be subject to wind cooling. So if you're exposed to the elements above the surface, wet or dry, you still might get cold. To battle that, we have what's known as a splash top or splash suit. Again, a fairly loose collar and cuff. So this will not keep you dry if you get submerged, but it will stop wind splashing on you, waves or water spraying up on you. A common combination is to have neoprene underneath and a splash top over the top. As you get more cold, you have full dry tops or dry suits. These have rubber gaskets along the neck and the arm cuffs that are designed to keep a seal, latex or rubber, that prevents water, even if you're submerged. Now, they have to fit properly and be well maintained in order to accomplish this. But the idea is, in a true dry suit, you can go into the water with thermal insulation underneath that is kept dry and stay warm, even in temperatures below freezing. Now, as we move down, one of the more important pieces of gear are our personal flotation devices, PFDs. These are designed to keep you above water. Now, in America, there's a system of 5 different levels of PFDs, and it's similar to Europe. However, the distinctions aren't that important. What's key is to know the general purposes. So we have in America what's known as, say, Type 1 PFD, Type 2, Type 3, Type 4, Type 5. You have basic offshore PFDs known as life jackets, life preservers. These are generally in the open ocean. They're larger, they're bulky, they provide enough lift to keep even heavy adults out of the water, and they will typically have flotation around the head and neck, and they're designed to turn an unconscious patient face up to keep you safe. Those are generally not used on inland craft or in rivers. What's more common are PFDs like this that are low cut, designed to give you some flotation, but actually allow quite a bit of movement to allow the boating process to take place. Now, this will not turn a patient over, and it might not even keep a heavy person above water, but it will aid you in helping you as you swim or struggle to keep your head above water. There's not as much buoyancy in these. Now, they'll typically have straps, and for whitewater use, the standard is to have a clip that goes underneath the rib cage of an adult and prevents the PFD from coming over the top. That's specific to a whitewater PFD. What you'll then find are known as Type 5 PFDs. These are typical paddling PFDs with additional features. Most predominantly is this rescue loop here, which is on a detachable belt that allows it to come loose if necessary, but can carry a tethered carabiner and line into a rescue. Additionally, these PFDs will have more padding, maybe 5 more kilograms of buoyancy built into them. But what this padding also does is offer protection. So the more padding you have, the more protection you have to your chest, your back, your neck, if you were to go into a rock, fall off of a boat. Secondly, they have straps that tend to run all the way down the full length, so that if you were to be grabbed here, you're not just grabbing PFD material, you're grabbing sturdy nylon straps and being pulled to the top. They also have things like reflective materials built into them, pockets for emergency kit on board. Those are PFDs. Now, one of the last things we'll talk about is footwear. This can be pretty significant. One of the most common injuries in a boating environment are slips and falls from a bank, from shore. So it's almost requisite, if you're going whitewater boating, to have a closed-toed shoe, something that protects your toe and then has a strap in the heel. Flip-flops are comfortable, but they will typically come off when you go into the water and give you limited support if you're in the river or on the bank. These Chacos are nice. They have a Vibram rubber sole underneath, good grip, limited ankle support, and they're typically not going to give you much insulation. So if you're boating in a colder climate or have to do a lot of hiking and carrying, you may want to get a boot that actually has good ankle support, good rubber sole, and a little bit of insulation. This can be augmented by neoprene or rubber socks that go on underneath. Now, a couple more items we'll talk about that you'd expect any boater to carry would be the aforementioned whistle. This allows you to signal and involve yourself in communication with other members of your group or in an emergency situation. Most whistles are designed to be plastic. They have no rubber ball inside them like you might see in a sports whistle or other type. And then they're going to be varying degrees of loudness. Some of the larger ones are considered to be 120 decibels or more. But it's something that you should be able to hear over the roar of a whitewater stream behind you. So take these out, practice them, be familiar with them. They should be tethered to your PFD in such a way that you can reach it from your mouth while being worn. The second item that you're typically going to carry is a river knife. These are designed to be releasable from your PFD. They typically have a blunt tip and a serrated edge, good rubber grip, so with a glove or in cold water you can still hold on to them. This is a flat design there. There's a more elaborately curved design here. The primary purpose of a river knife is to cut some sort of strap or webbing that's holding a boat down, holding a swimmer down, holding somebody down, holding yourself down. You want to be able to cut it easily with one hand and one good stroke. Secondary functions may be to perform first aid or even to pop an inflatable craft, but primarily it needs to be used one hand to clear an attached line or obstruction. Lastly, the next couple things you'll carry might be a carabiner on your person. These become useful in setting up more elaborate rescues. You mostly want locking carabiners. An auto locker like this, which will not become snagged, is nice. Or you might have some of the more old-fashioned locking carabiners that you deliberately have to twist in order to lock and unlock. Those of you with climbing experience may remember that you want this gate to stay closed to protect you when you fall. However, in a river setting, you want this gate to stay closed so you don't accidentally snag onto some part of a boat or a strap. So you always want to make sure your carabiners, even if they're just stored on the outside of your PFD, are closed and cannot come open. You may additionally carry a little bit of nylon webbing. This can be useful in making all sorts of repairs, anchors for more elaborate rescues, and even a harness if you needed to go vertically into or out of the water. The last most important piece of equipment we'll talk about are the throw ropes. These are designed to be used in the reach, throw, row and go methodology when a patient is outside the reach of a paddle or a tree branch or something you have from the shore, and you can extend your range by throwing a rope. These are purpose-built. They're typically between 15 and 20 meters, something like 45 and 75 feet. Usually around 50 feet, 15, 20 meters is about as far as someone can throw accurately, or the weight of this bagged rope will travel. As you can see, you've taken a line of rope and bagged it loosely into a little nylon carrying bag that will throw like a ball as the rope trails out from behind. So obviously you have to maintain control of this from the shore, practice good aim, and have the attention of the swimmer. If it lands near them, they can grab onto this and be pulled to shore like we showed in the slideshow. We'll get a lot of practice during the class with this. The idea here is very specific rope. You'll notice a lot of these are bright yellow or orange. They're designed to be visible. They're also made out of polypropylene usually, which floats and stays on the top of the water, not like nylon ropes, which may be stronger but often sink to the bottom. And then they'll typically be in something like this, maybe 5 millimeters, usually 6 or 7, 3/8 of an inch, something like that, which is good and strong and good that someone can grip onto. Also, you don't want it to be too thin, because a thin rope, when pressured against human flesh, can actually cut it and cause damage. So this is designed to be worn around your waist. Other throw ropes are put on the bow or stern of larger boats, but they should be accessible, have good aerodynamic properties, and be highly visible. Like I said, we'll get quite a bit of practice with that. The last thing we'll talk about are some of the more advanced concepts when you put these tools together. We'll just allude to them in this class, and they can be done in higher levels of swiftwater rescue. But the idea is, if you progress or need to be prepared to perform a higher level rescue, a Type 5 vest might be useful. It would have a rescue ring like this on the back, which would then allow you to take a throw rope and not just throw it, but perhaps tie a fixed line to a confident swimmer who can then take this out in the mid-channel to a victim. Swim to them, say they're unconscious and could not catch a rope. They would be able, wearing this PFD, to grab hold, be pulled by a rescue team to shore, and then commit a rescue. In a real situation where that person might not be able to swim, you can take 2 rescue lines, one on either end of this ring, and create what's known as a V-lower. By pulling tension from one side or another, you may be able to lower a person specifically downriver to rescue a victim. As we get more involved, you may be able to do the same thing with a boat. Attach 2 ropes to it and move it back and forth in a river channel, allowing it to get into position. If a boat is stuck by pinning itself against a bridge abutment or a rock or a tree, you'll use some of these ropes, and perhaps even stronger ones, to create what's known as a Z-drag, or a 3-to-1 mechanical advantage, which allows you to pull against the tremendous forces of water and free a boat. For that, you might need an anchor. So you'd need material like this that can go around a tree and then allow a system to be built around it. This will involve a little bit more equipment and the knowledge of knots. So we'll talk a little bit about that at the end of class so we know where we're going from here. But mostly what we'll focus on is using this equipment properly, keeping ourselves safe, warm, protected, and then what to do in simple rescues if something happens to a victim. Mostly we're going to rely on our skills of reach, throw, row, and go. We'll practice offensive swimming, defensive swimming, and strainer swimming. Then we'll practice some wading techniques and decision making. So I'm looking forward to it. Hope you are too.